Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We all want to get to the good stuff fast, right? And that's what we're all about here, taking a bunch of info and boiling it down to what really matters.
Absolutely.
We take these sources, pull out the key points, and give you that, that concentrated knowledge.
Like a shot of espresso.
Exactly. So today we're diving into, well, excerpts from Geeta.pdf.
Okay.
Specifically, how the 80-20 principle can be applied to the Bhagavad Gita. So we're talking about finding that core 20% of teachings that can really unlock like 80% of the Gita's wisdom for, well, a more fulfilling and peaceful life.
It's about efficiency, right? We want the biggest impact for the effort.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. One of the first things that pops out, at least to me, is this idea of focusing on your duty, not the outcome.
Oh, yes.
It's like applying that 80-20 principle to, well, to how we approach our tasks,
I see what you mean.
And there's this key verse, 2.47. It states, "You have the right to perform your duty, but never to the fruits of your actions."
Powerful stuff.
Right. So let's say you're working on this big project and you're feeling overwhelmed. Like the outcome seems so far off.
Yeah, been there.
Instead of getting all caught up in those worries about the end result, that's like the 80% of anxiety.
Yeah.
Right there.
Hmm.
What if you just focus on, say, the next actionable step? Maybe just outlining the first section.
Or making that one phone call.
Exactly. That focused effort, that's the 20% that often leads to the biggest progress.
It's interesting because when you detach from needing a specific outcome, it can actually free you up to be more present.
And more effective.
Yeah.
Now, another big one, and this is something we've all struggled with, I think, is this whole idea of controlling your mind.
Oh, for sure. The mind can be a wild place.
Seriously. And it's been said, that a lot of our challenges, they actually come from within.
That rings true.
Right. And verse 6.6 in the Gita, it actually highlights this. It says, "For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy."
So it's about mastering those thoughts.
Yeah, and think about how much energy, just mental energy, we waste on worries and distractions.
Oh, a ton.
Right. But the Gita suggests that if we can learn to actually master those thoughts, well, a lot of our problems might just, disappear.
It's empowering, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Because it puts you in the driver's seat.
Right. It makes you think, where am I spending my mental energy right now?
Yeah.
And what small changes can I make to gain more control?
Totally. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about happiness.
Okay.
We often look for it in external things, new stuff, achievements.
That's the world we live in.
It is.
Yeah.
But the Gita, well, it points us inward.
Interesting.
So verse 5.21 says, "One who finds happiness within, who rejoices within, and who is illuminated by inner wisdom, that yogi attains divine bliss."
And a yogi in this sense, just for anyone who's not familiar, it's someone who is disciplined in, their inner practices, striving for self-realization.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about the physical posture.
Right.
So sure, getting something new or having a fun experience, that can bring joy, but it's temporary.
I see.
But lasting fulfillment, that deeper sense of happiness, that comes from cultivating inner contentment.
Something that's not dependent on, things changing around you all the time.
Yeah, and if we think about it, that kind of inner source of joy, that's way more sustainable.
That's fragile.
Now, this next idea might seem a bit counterintuitive.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's this idea of surrendering to a higher power.
Surrendering.
Yeah, and it's not about giving up. It's more about letting go of that need to control everything.
Oh, I get it.
So verse 18.66 says, "Abandon all varieties of dharma and surrender unto me alone. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear."
So what's dharma in this context?
It's not just about religious duties. It's more like your inherent nature, your responsibilities in the world.
I see.
And surrendering, it's not about being passive. It's about aligning yourself with a larger cosmic order, trusting that things will unfold as they should, even if we can't see the full picture.
That's a tough one for a lot of people, I think.
It is. But think about it. It means letting go of that constant need to micromanage every single aspect of your life.
And trusting that some things will just work themselves out.
Right. It's like a huge weight off your shoulders.
It makes you wonder, what am I desperately trying to control right now that I could actually benefit from surrendering?
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, The Gita talks about how the world is temporary.
In a constant state of flux.
Yeah, everything's always changing. And, our attachment to things that don't last, well, that can be a big source of unhappiness.
Makes sense if you're clinging to something that's going to change anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's this verse, 2.14, and it says, happiness and distress come and go like summer and winter seasons. Endure them patiently.
I like that.
Right. So think about how much of our suffering comes from just clinging to those things that are inevitably going to change.
Like trying to hold on to summer forever.
Yeah. But if we cultivate a sense of detachment, understanding that this is just the nature of things, well, we can navigate those ups and downs with a bit more peace.
It's about acceptance, isn't it?
It really is. And what's interesting is that acknowledging that impermanence, it can actually help you appreciate the present moment so much more.
Because you realize it's not going to last forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, by focusing on these 5 core principles from the Bhagavad Gita through that 80-20 lens, you can gain a lot of insight. We talked about duty without attachment, mind control, inner happiness, surrender, and detachment.
Finding those key levers for a more meaningful life.
Yeah. And, it all comes down to figuring out which of those principles really resonates with you and your life right now.
What's speaking to you the most?
Yeah. Exactly. And how can focusing on even just a small part of that principle, that 20%, if you will, how can that create a positive shift for you? I'd love for you to think about that. Until next